Depression in a man is only caused by one single thing, in my opinion. You lack purpose. You do not know why you're here, because a man needs purpose or
Yeah.
else his life is meaningless. And this is the biggest problem. We don't teach that to our kids.
Well, welcome to the True Man Podcast. Now, I'm always game to talk about how men can achieve greatness and be the men they want to become. Well, I know this sounds crazy, but a lot of dudes don't know what that means and maybe even don't know how to get there. And it's why we do what we do on the True Man Podcast. And the beauty of this for me is that I'm not the only one in the cause, because Lord knows men need a lot of help and a lot of refuge and someone to walk alongside them when choppy waters come their way. And maybe that's just because you're one of the guys. Maybe you just recognize, at least we hope you do, that, every once in a while you may need a little help. So let's meet a man taking up the cause to do just that, like me. Welcome to the podcast, Nico Lagan. Lagan. See, I told you I'd mess it up.
All good.
That's, anybody that listens to this, they get that. So Nico is an entrepreneur, a men's coach, a Thai instructor, author, and host of the controversial podcast. He's going to have to tell us why, the Nico Lagan Show. Nico, much like me, helps young men become good men and good men to be great. Welcome to the show, Nico.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
So tell us, answer me this right off the top. I got to know, why controversial? Why do you add that in the branding of the podcast?
Because unfortunately, my views are not mainstream anymore. 20 years ago, what I'm saying was just pure common sense, and it's been like that since the dawn of time. But since men became women and everything's vilified, I can't tell that a man's supposed to be manly. That's not acceptable anymore. So I have a lot of views that the average person, the average 20-year-old doesn't want to hear.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they're the one that should hear, that should listen the most. So yeah, it's kind of a joke when I say that it's controversial, because yes, it's controversial, but it shouldn't be. It just proves that our time has changed, and
Well,
we are screwed. We are
yeah. Listen,
so screwed.
I knew you were going to tell me that, but I thought I'd ask because I agree with you 100%. We're living in some pretty amazing times, and to me, it's just crazy that you and I sounds like we're about to have the discussion that we're about to have. But talk about that. Go into depth a little bit more. What are you finding? What's in your mind? What do you see going on in a man's world right now?
To me, the biggest problem comes from the way boys are raised now. If you look at the statistics, a lot of boys are getting raised by single women. And I was raised by a single woman. And there's nobody out there that can tell me that a woman can teach a boy how to become a man. In the same way that I cannot take a little girl and turn her into a woman. Yet it is my responsibility to find her tutors, mentors, women that I look up to, so that she has people to look up to that can help her become the woman that she needs to become. But I think this is the number one problem, is that we have too many men. The movie Fight Club that was like in 1999 says it so well, and that's exactly what he says. He's like, is a woman then really the best thing that we need right now, considering that we are a generation of men raised by women, and it's just getting worse. If you look, I'm from the 80s, and that's my situation.
Amen,
but
brother.
but look at the young men now.
Yeah.
Like, it's I was looking at the statistics. So 50% of marriages end up in divorces. 70 to 90%, depending on the education of the woman. 70% if she's not a college graduate, 90% if she is, will divorce, are responsible for starting the divorce. From there, it's 80 to 90% of the cases the kids goes with the mother. So right
Yeah.
there, the men, we're so castrated as men, we don't even have access to our kids. If our wife decides to leave, which as per the statistics, it's 70 to 90% of the time, they can decide, like the judge will by default grant.
Yeah.
So if the woman's a good woman and she says, you know what, no problem, I believe that he should be involved, we're going to do 50-50, beautiful. But if the woman says, hell no, he's not getting the kids, you're going to fight teeth and nails to see your kids. And chances are you're not going to see them. Like it's such a big problematic today that we assume that because you're a woman, you know better how to raise a kid. It's ludicrous. Both of the parents should be there. You know the expression that says that it takes a village to raise a child? This I believe 100,000%. I
Oh
couldn't
my
believe in
gosh,
something more
yes.
than that. Even two parents are going to have problems raising a kids by themselves. Like they need to have access to other great people to help them out. So I think it all starts there. It's really the destruction of the family unit that's not there. And it is made by, if you look at what's going on today, it is really because men are being portrayed as being toxic. So
Yeah.
a guy like me that's a
Yeah.
strong man that's ready to kill and die to defend my family. I
Mhm.
believe to be the provider that my girlfriend needs me to be. I believe that I need to have courage. I need to have temperance. I need to have faith. I'm a problem when I have values that I'm ready to die for, but I'm the problem. Me that's copied men throughout history. You know, I always keep this in mind that if you think a strong man is problematic, wait till you see what a weak man is capable of doing.
Well, I think we're seeing that.
100%.
Yeah,
A hundred percent.
I think we're seeing that, and you know what I want, you know, if somebody's listening to this now, right now, going like, "What?" Listen, it, it, that what we're not talking about. Um, well, I will name names. You know, we're not
You should.
talking. Yeah, we're
You
not
should.
talking about all these, Matt Lauer, and some of these Hollywood guys that have come out and slept with X amount of women or whatever. Could we define that as toxic masculinity? Well, it's certainly stupid behavior, but don't put me in that. I'm not a part of that. And so, when I hear this stuff floating around about toxic masculinity, I'll be honest, it pisses me off because I don't think that's the average guy. In fact, I think the average guy really wants to do well by their family. And there's so much doggone confusion in our culture right now. If anything, we don't know what to do. I mean, I mean, it's a deer in the headlight almost type, look at things right now. How do we be the men that we want to be? And I often say, hey, we got to come together as one. I mean, I'm good for one-on-one coaching. I love that. But listen, I love the community even better. Is that kind of where you land on this?
Listen, I was just in a conference in Seattle where I was one of the keynote speakers, and it was a men's conference. They were all men, mostly blue collar guys, but all trying to understand how to be better as people. And
Yeah.
it's not something that we see all the time. Like you see an empowering movement for women that's been going on for 80 years. But when it comes to men, we don't talk about those things. Like we don't give a platform to men to
Yeah.
just meet other men that are manly, trying to understand, okay, hold on, maybe I'm not the problem after all. Maybe the TV's the problem, maybe social media is the
Yeah.
problem. Because the thing is, we are surrounded by bullshit. Like if you listen to the media and what they have to say about what we are, it's complete nonsense. You know how many conversations I have conversations with people every day because of the type of, I post a lot on relationship between men and women.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I get people approach me and call me names on a single every single day about this. And it's always women, always pretty women that are always complaining, saying that they don't need a man. But yet I'm like, okay, hold on. You don't need a man. Oh no, we're independent. We don't need men anymore. Okay, hold on. Okay, sure. 95% of dangerous jobs are made by men. And that's not because women can't do it. That's because women don't want to do those jobs. So we got 95% of the jobs that are done by men because they need to support their families. Who supports the infrastructure, the streets, the roads, everything around you that you use on a daily basis? Who builds your cars? Who comes to your rescue when you call the police? You're literally asking a man to commit violence in order to protect you. Who's saving you? Who's the fireman that's going to save you when your house is on fire? That's another strong man that believes so much in his values that he's going to
Yeah.
risk his own life to come save you. But yet you have those women out there that have the audacity to say that men are toxic. Yet who do they call when they need help? When they need something fixed, they call a man. When they need security, they call a man. It's This is what baffles me, that I we need to even talk about this. How is this no, but how is this a
I,
subject of
I,
conversation I don't understand how that needs to be addressed. That
I,
should be common sense.
it's really funny. I'm hearing you say that, and at the point you said it, what's going through my mind is, why the hell are we having this conversation again?
I I have no clue why this is needs to be done, but this is 100% of my content. This is all I talk about, is where men fit in this situation. And in the book, in my first book that I just finished, I mentioned that men are the forgotten segment of society. We've been so good at being selfless, at doing what we needed to do for our loved ones, to just do our job, do the works, not complain, that people take us for granted. And this is what you see today. You see a bunch of privileged individuals that are just, "Huh, this life of ours is easy. I don't need anybody." One of my one of the guys that I've recorded a few podcasts with is called Justin Garcia, and he has a great analogy. He calls it the aquarium. We live in an aquarium because we literally live in a sustained fake environment. You break that aquarium, everything goes to shit. But the aquarium, when you're the fish, it looks like a real habitat because you don't notice all the people in the back end that's taking care of it for you.
Right.
And
Right.
this is what we're seeing today. You know the expression that hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times.
Hmm.
This is what we're seeing right now. The last real men were done after the Second World War or during the Second World War. And that cycle, as per the studies, is 80 years. We're bang on. We're bang on to be at the end of the cycle right now. So I'm not surprised by what we're saying, but I'm disappointed that it's happening.
Well, I think it's hard. For guys like you and me, I'm 53. Okay. I grew up in the 80s,
Are you a
and
baby boomers? Are you considered a baby boomer? You're too
X,
young to be a baby
that
boomer. Yeah, that's
generation
what I
X.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that is there are oftentimes I find myself, thinking, gosh, I was right there at the tail end of an
Yeah.
era. It was right before. I mean, I literally learned how to type, right? I was actually smart enough to take a couple typing classes when I was in high school. The one skill I use
Yeah.
every single day, amazingly
Yep.
enough. But I learned how to type on an electric typewriter. There were a few computers around when I went to college. If you wanted a computer, you had to go down to the library, and they only had a couple. It wasn't like they had a computer lab,
Yeah.
and
No.
so and to me, that's where some of this stuff starts to cut off, where technology really starts to dig in its claws and take over. It just feels like there's this, and I'm going to say it, this softness that begins to occur. I mean, for me, to this day, uh, my losses that have occurred in my life are the reason why I'm winning now,
Hmm?
and the reason that I can offer somebody advice. Nobody
Hmm.
gave me a medal when I got my tail end kicked by 30 points. That wasn't going on. And during the summers, I got out in the fields and worked. I mean, I did, mowing lawns. I mean, hard labor, you had to put calluses on your hands. And I don't see that going on. And listen, am I to blame? You know, my son's never touched a lawnmower.
Yeah. You
Now
know,
I don't do
that's
it
what it
either
comes down
right
to.
now, but you know, that's
To
how.
to to me, the issue is with parents, the way they raise their children like they're their friends. This is the biggest problem that I can see. Like, I haven't taught martial arts in schools where they teach kids. I don't teach kids, but looking at the way the kids behave in front of the parent, absolutely, it's incredible that back in the days, like look 50 years and before that, boys had responsibilities. When
Yeah.
they were boys, they had chores to do. They have things that needed to be done. They needed to pay respect to their parents. And I guarantee you that if they disrespected their father, there were consequences to those
Oh
actions.
yeah.
And yet those boys grew. There was no such thing as teenagers. Most people don't know that, but the word teenager was not quoted before 1922 or 1924. So we felt the need to invent a really nice period of time where our boys become teenagers. They do nothing for 10 years. And then they turn on to be 28 years old and they realize that they're still teenagers, but yet they look like men. So we wonder why we're so confused. We treat our kids like they're our friends. We're not a source of authority anymore. They don't have any responsibility. We don't teach them to have responsibilities when they're young. We create safe spaces so that they feel safe. They're never threatened.
Right.
They never confront anything that could scare them. And then when they turn 20, 25, we wonder why they're weak. They've never worked with their hands. They've never had responsibilities. They've never faced their fears. They never got their ass kicked. They never got anything has ever happened to them. And then they wonder why they're so depressed, why they feel so bad, why they feel like their life is worthless. Because at the end of the day, I'm not even sorry for saying this, but your life is worthless. You have no purpose, you've accomplished anything, and you have no idea where you're going. Like this should be abuse from the parents' side, because you're creating psychological problems with those young men that will need to be rectified. It's
Well,
it's
yeah,
it's
and that's certainly going on, Nico. There's absolutely no
oh
doubt
yeah.
about it because I mean, we've got um at least when I talk to people, it seems like every other kid's on some kind of medication or
Yep.
they've been diagnosed with something. And
Yep.
I think to myself, listen, I'm the first one to say, hey, the science we have nowadays is fantastic. The healthcare. I mean, I get all that. I get all that. But I just always circle back and I go, geez, everybody seems so normal 20 some years ago. And so let's diagnose this a little bit if we could try. What's going on now that wasn't going on 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago, other than, we could look at work and stuff like that. I mean, what do you think that's going on? I could
Well, the
probably answer this, by the way, but what do you see going on that
I
that is
it's
causing this?
it starts with the parents. That there's no doubt about it. That parents
Okay.
don't teach their kids discipline and responsibilities anymore. But I think also as adults, most men do not take responsibilities for their actions either. They tend to be victim. Like we are a society of victim.
Yes.
We
Yes.
we you know I always think about this. If your life sucks, guess what? Is because you suck. You as an individual, your life is a direct reflection of who you are. You were not dealt the cards you were given. You couldn't choose, they were given to you. You can choose the cards you were dealt. No questions about that. But how you play those cards is 100% on you. What you decide to do or not do, that's on you. Take responsibility for this. But you know, there's a big connect. One of the problems that I see with depression, especially as you were saying, that we see younger and younger people being on antidepressive drug.
Yeah.
This to me is complete nonsense. You are treating a symptom of the problem and not the problem itself. You're not supposed to stay on antidepressant for the rest of your life. Antidepressant were invented to save yourself from killing yourself.
Yeah.
When it's becoming too much and you can't deal with it, let's trick your brain by playing with the neuroreceptor and make sure that you don't feel like killing yourself anymore. But that is only the first step. That is the step you're supposed to take in order to start dealing with your shit. Why your antidepressant will raise your head above water so you don't drown, but this is where the real work starts. You need to start figuring out why you feel that way. And we forget we've become a society that's over specialized, so we see everything like silos, like you everybody's
Yeah,
specialist in
absolutely.
something. But yet I pride myself to not be a specialist but to be a jack of all trade. I like to step back and look at a holistic view and look, okay, hold on, let's take yourself. We have somebody that has that has symptoms of depression. He goes to see a psychiatrist so that he can get drugs for it. But then nobody treats the body, the mind, as they are connected. We treat the mind, oh, here's antidepressant, but don't worry about the fact that you've been eating garbage for years, that you treated your body like a dumpster, that you spend all your time inside staring at your phone, that you never exercise, that you don't meditate, you don't walk in the forest, you never spend time in nature, you don't take care of your body, and you wonder why your mind is sick.
Yeah,
You have, you know, I believe in the
but
connection
people
between the
do.
uh, the
They wonder about it. Yeah.
to me, depression, and I'm going to speak about men because our brain does not work the same way as women, but for a
Mhm.
man that's depressed, depression in a man is only caused by one single thing, in my opinion. You lack purpose. You do not know why you're here, because a man needs purpose or
Yeah.
else his life is meaningless. And this is the biggest problem. We don't teach that to our kids. And from my point of view, there's three major purposes that a man will face. Boy needs to become a man. That's his first purpose. Second purpose is a man to become a good man. That's his second purpose. And his third one is for a man to become great. A boy to become a man needs to be taught, needs rite of passages. He
Right
needs
up
to be shown,
yeah.
he needs to be shown by somebody, a village. They need to test him. Come on. Unlike women, girls become women by being able to be impregnated, by being able to procreate. From the dawn of time, boys have become men by being tested, by proving to their community, to their loved ones, that we can depend on them
Mhm.
to be a man, to take the responsibility of a man. But we don't teach that anymore. And then we're surprised that our 20-year-old are so screwed, they're so lost. They have no man in their life, nobody to teach them rites of passages, nobody to teach them what it is to become a man. We don't even take care of the first purpose, and that's just the first one.
Yeah.
We don't even go to the second and the third. We screw them up to the first purpose. They have no idea who they are, what they're supposed to be. No wonder they're depressed. What's the point of living if you have no reasons to live?
Eh, you boy, you just gave me so much to unpack there. Listen, I'm right behind you on that. Yeah, really. I'm right behind you on that whole idea of rite of passage. In fact, on episode 93, I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Stephen Arms who wrote a book called Rite of Passage, and it was his family's, how that went down in his family. And I think that is so beautiful in so many respects because, as a boy, how do you know when you're a man? What does that even mean nowadays? Does it mean you migrate from a iPad to a desktop computer? I don't know what the heck
Yep.
it even, and the other thing that is an interesting thing. This is kind of a side note in our culture, but I think it's along the lines of rite of passage is apprentice. That whole word is just dropped off the face of the earth. There's no apprentices anymore. I grew up in central Iowa. There are no family farms anymore because the kids that they don't want the farm. They just want to, go off and do their own thing. It's an interesting society that we live in where we're not training up our young people. And you talk about a purpose. Well, how would they know their purpose? Half the dudes that are leading them don't know their purpose, quite
And
quite honestly. And that may sound terribly blunt, but I know you see it. I see
oh
it.
yeah.
There are and we could say people, but we're going to say men since this is kind of who we're
Yep.
focused on. There are a lot of men just walking around virtually paralyzed
Mhm.
because they don't know what to do. And I am a big believer, and I'm going to send this over to you when I say this. I'm a big believer that the biggest problem is that people either don't know how to ask for help or are so bullheaded they won't ask for help. And I think that it starts with that, realizing that, help, man, it might just be a phone call away to help you
I would
find what you're looking
I
for.
would take it even further than that. I would say that they don't even know who to ask help to,
Well, sure. Yes.
because I think this is the biggest problem. And going back to what you were saying about your farming example, it's a great example because to me, if you look at 50, 100 years ago, men did jobs that were dangerous. Men did jobs that supported their families. They
Yeah.
didn't work in offices. So they needed to know that their boys would be able to take their place if they
Oh,
died.
it's so
If you're
true.
working if you're working on a farm and the man dies, guess what? The rest of the family could die. So you need to train your boys, you need to teach them to take your place. It's amazing when you think about it. For the longest time, boys became the same thing as the father. The father passed
Yeah.
down their trade, and now it's the complete opposite. The son is so disgusted by his father that he does the complete opposite of what the father does. But yet, later back in life, finds meaning into what his father used to do. It's We're so lost in the way that we teach our boys. It makes absolutely no sense. We give them none of the tools that they need, so they don't know they have none of the resources to help them. They don't even know that they have problems because they don't even know what a real man should look like. They don't know who to ask. They
Yeah.
don't know what the problem is, and all we do for them is, sorry, here's an antidepressant. I hope you feel better."
Sadly, that's very true.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what do we do? What do we do? We're at the point we're at right now in our culture.
Yep.
You and I have no doubt, are on the same page in terms of wanting to make an impact in this
Mhm.
world, wanting to be a difference maker. How do we do that?
It's going to be very pessimistic what I'm going to say, but it's like at the fall of the Roman Empire. A lot of people died. The people that couldn't, because what we're seeing right now happened. This is how Roman fell. This is how the Roman Empire fell, is by having a bunch of weak men taking control of everything, and they couldn't defend themselves against a horde of attackers. So, unfortunately, I've had this conversation with many of my friends, and I don't know that there's a good outcome to this, because if you trust the 80-year cycle I was talking about, normally 80 to 120 years, but we're right at the tail end of it. And in order to create strong men, you need to have hard times, and that hard time is always created by weak men. So, is there something we can do except try to speak to the men that our message resonates, even if it's just a bit, even if it's just to open up their ears and be finally able to listen? Because I believe there's more and more men that are starting to realize, and technology allows us to spread the message easier,
Yeah.
to reach more people. And I'm going to continue doing what I do, and in the hopes that I can reach as many young men as I can. But I think that's all we can do, because if they're in Canada, where I'm from, the grocery store are restocked every 48 hours, maximum 72 hours. So that means that if you lack food, you don't replenish the grocery store within 3 days, it's anarchy. How many people have the tools to actually deal with this?
I'm not so sure that anarchy isn't going on. I mean, at least in this country, going on in small ways. There's some
Mhm.
bizarre things going on, friend. I had the news on for a very short period of time this morning. I've spent most of my life around major railroad areas in this country, and there are trains sliding off tracks at a very fast pace. There are manufacturing facilities. I think a few weeks ago there was a gigantic egg facility that went up in flames. Why do these, and I don't, you know, I'm I'm sure people go, Mike, now you're going off the deep end. There are weird things going on. Why are they going on at the magnitude that they're going on? Is somebody trying to control us? Do they realize the passivity of man?
I don't normally talk about this because I don't. I it
Sorry,
falls
I
on deaf.
slid right in there.
Oh no, but that's fine. It just normally falls on deaf ears. But I've been what they call a conspiracy theorist for more than 20 years. There wasn't a term to describe what I was 20, 25 years ago. But it's just the pill is too big to accept. If you either believe the government wants to help you, or you do research and you realize that they don't care about you. The day that I realized that I had to take care of about myself and the people that I love, responsibility on my actions started happening. So is there somebody trying to control us? Who knows? But if they were, they're noticing that we're weak. It is, if they do exist, if there is
Yeah.
somebody, if there
Yeah.
are people with a back plan, we're not winning that war right now. We're not looking very tough. And this is one of the reasons we are in the deep south right now. Like we're literally we're in El Paso, right at the border of Texas and Mexico. But you know what? If there's one thing I've learned, there's still hopes in the US. This is one of the reasons I left Canada. Canada is so soft. There's not a lot of hopes left in Canada, but I still have a hope in the US, especially split Virginia and south of Virginia. There are a lot of good men there. I've met so many
Yeah.
good people since we've been on the road. And I still have hope in your beautiful country that there are still enough good men to teach younger men to become good themselves. But if there is something going on, we're proving our weakness as a society right now.
Well, it's interesting. I was at an event recently and this whole idea around passivity came up and the gentleman said, his wife owns a hair salon and they talk about that in the hair salon. Women talking about passivity. Okay. Now, if women recognize that this is a problem, that they're looking for real men, man, I tell you what, it's time to stand up and fight. And now I will say, and this is where, self study and looking back, passivity goes all the way back to the first Adam. We've talked about this on the show quite a few times. Circles back to the first Adam in the Bible. Adam was the first man to show up and really be passive,
Yep.
and so this is part of our DNA,
Mhm.
but it doesn't have to be the dominant part of our DNA. And it certainly feels like that is the case. Again, I don't want to be having this discussion, but I'm having this discussion because I want men know that there are men out there like you, like me. Hey, I want to fight for this.
Women need strong men as we need strong women. It's again, how is this taboo? How is this taboo?
I don't know.
Because day in, day out, I interact with women, and most of them do want a good man, a good, strong man that's going to take care of them and protect them. Because at the end of the day, this is your duty as a man. Your two main duty is to be a protector and to be a provider to your family. It's our life is not supposed to be that complicated. There's reasons why it's always women and kids first that get saved. It's the same reason why it's men that go to war and that's men that dies, because unfortunately our life is not that valuable compared to the life of women and the life of children. And it's okay, I don't have a problem with that. If that's the way I gotta go, that's the way I gotta go. But we need to understand that that's the case. It's not, it's been like that our whole, it's been like that since
Yeah,
men have been men. It is hard to become a good man, as you're saying.
it is hard.
Passive, it's easy to be
Yep.
weak because you don't need to do anything. Adam didn't need to be strong until he needed to be strong, so he was weak. Only when he got kicked off, he's like, oh shit, maybe I need to do something about this. But until then, he got to be weak and he got to be controlled by a woman just because she could. But it is his job. You know, I like to explain it this way: a man is a woman's rock, and a woman is a man's weakness.
I love that. Yeah, but that is so. There's truth in that, man.
We're supposed to be the ones that are more stoic, that will take a step back and say, "Okay, crazy woman, hold on here. What are you talking about here?" Like, and I say crazy woman not in a not in a bad way, because to
Yeah.
me, all women, there was. Have you ever seen the crazy to hot ratio? The explanation,
I've seen something like this, but go ahead and
and the guy says that he just says that there's no such thing as a woman that's not at least a 4 out of 10 crazy. So every woman out there are crazy. It's just there's levels, right? But all to say that women are normally more emotional. They're driven by their emotions, and it's a beautiful thing, if you ask me. But it
Yeah.
is our job to be more stoic, to calm things down, and be able to be a rock that they need to be. And they are our weakness because we're supposed to open to them.
Yeah,
But
and
again,
I think that's where emotional intelligence comes into play, and
a
so many
hundred percent,
yeah, so many guys don't recognize this,
no.
and this is where it's so important to hit that pause button and digest this a little bit, you know? Um, I'm sure you have this conversation quite a bit as well. Guys MO, I'm gonna get angry,
Yep,
and if you can give yourself that pause button, a little bit of margin, there's a different
yep.
path to go down. But this whole idea of emotional intelligence, that's where men, take a look in the mirror. You're capable of more. You're capable of more. And stop
I just
asking for it and doing nothing about it.
I literally just posted about this morning, saying that if I can make you lose it with words, you are very easily controllable, my friend. If
Yeah.
all I need to do is to make you lose control, is to call you names or call your wife names, and you're gonna lose it, that means that you're very easy to control. Take me. That means that I can go to a bar, I can start insulting someone knowing that he's gonna put his hands on me just because I don't like him and I want to break him. So technically, I walked you into a trap because I've been doing martial arts for most of my life. So I don't like you. I'm going to insult you. You're going to touch me. That's self defense. Now I just broke you. This is how easy controllable people are. But this is ludicrous to me. How many times have I been in a situation where I had a man that wanted to fight, and I knew I could break him? And I simply, sir, you're a lot better than I am. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I would leave. No, but what's the point? There's assholes everywhere. Are you going to lose your mind every single time you meet one? They're everywhere. Get out of your house, you'll meet one today.
Oh
So
yeah.
why lose control of your emotions? Why have There was a rap song, the guy said that you should never let people live in your head rent free.
Where do you even start with that? I mean, that's a majority of us. We allow
I
things to live in our head rent free. Um, and that's unfortunate. That is going on. That is the reality of the world, and
Yep.
that is the basis of why I say, "Hey, you got to live in community. Don't isolate. Come on, anybody can do that." And it's not right. That's why we need to be in community so that we can learn from each other.
To a
Discern.
certain But to a certain extent, if you look at have you ever read Tribal Leadership?
No, I've not read that.
I can't remember the name of the author, but he explains that as per studies, we're not meant to live in society or communities that are bigger than 150 people, because that is the day that you cannot name the name of everybody around you, you start caring for them. You're not attached emotionally to them, so you don't care. So he puts it into a business context. He talks about big corporation, how every single time they get to a certain point, they just start fracturing. So every section is about 150 people, but there's a bunch of factions within those companies. But this is just human behavior.
Yeah,
So I agree with you that living in communities is a good thing. I also believe that spending time alone is the best way to do introspection. So
I agree.
there's a fine line between being in those millions and millions of people cities where nobody cares about anybody, being alone in the woods by yourself all the time. But
Mhm.
there is a place like that 150. Like, this is my dream. This is one of my biggest dream, is to buy a big plot of land somewhere, have a bunch of houses built on it, and all my loved ones, my friends, whoever wants to come down, come join us. Come raise your kids with us. We'll have people that are teachers, we'll have people that are doctors, we'll have like just set up a small, I'm not saying like a sect or anything, but just a place where people
Yeah.
that think alike can simply have a life where they can take care of themselves and people care about each other.
Well, have you found a spot like that? Now, Nico, tell everybody you're traveling around. Are we okay to talk about that a
Oh,
little bit?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
what,
So he's traveling around, what, in an RV or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
We have a travel trailer where we're traveling around, and that's one of the reasons why my girlfriend and I were not comfortable in Canada. We didn't like the communist country that Canada is becoming, and we decided to leave, and we're looking for our next place to stay. We're traveling the US just because we want to see if there's a place in the US that we want to live in. If not, we'll continue down south. If we don't find anything there, I guess we'll go overseas. But that's the whole point, is to find a place where we can establish ourselves and put something together.
now how long have you been doing that?
5 months now.
5 months. What
Yeah.
is so you've been traveling around this country for 5 months. What do you What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What's going on in America as you hit the road?
You know what, I've stopped watching TV a long time ago. I
Oh,
don't
that's
watch the new
genius.
I don't watch, like, I'll watch Netflix at night when I'm eating and before going to bed, because I normally work 12, 14 hours a day, and by the 14 hour, I'm
Yeah,
burnt.
yeah.
My brain doesn't work anymore, so I just put something on, I eat, and I go to bed.
Yep.
But I don't watch the news, and it's amazing that if it wasn't for the news, you would not know that anything wrong is going on. If the people that are, all those weak people out there, if they turned off the news and just got out of their house and start meeting people the way I do, they would realize that I've met such great people everywhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely everywhere. I don't know why Canadians are recognized to be so polite, because I find that people in the South are way more polite than Canadians. But all I'm seeing is good humans everywhere. I'm meeting such great people from all walks of life. If it wasn't for the news, I don't think anybody would know that there's something weird going on.
I was very optimistically hoping that you would say
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
I, I, I
100%.
I'm not traveling around so much, but in the circles that I run around, you know, I I feel that, and I am optimistic. I do think things happen in cycles.
Mhm.
And I think we've gone through a little bit of a down cycle in this country based on really just confusion, poor leadership.
Agreed.
And so I think that there's a yearning for more. And I hope that people like you and I could play a small role in starting that. So, Nico, tell people how they can find you as we wrap up today. Really appreciate your thoughts today, and I love the bluntness. Sometimes we need that. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, I work with a marketing company, and because every time we talk, they're amazed. They're like, we have not met a lot of guys that don't care about what they have to say. If I have something to say, I'll say it. I don't really care about hurting people's feelings. This is how I am in real life. What you see now is just me in front of a camera. There's no difference in the way I act. It's just, it
Well,
needs to
that's
be said.
real. That's authentic, and I get
Yeah.
that. I commonly get that. I don't even. I'm a lot like you. Like people go, "Wow, that was a different conversation that we had," and I'm like, "Why? Because it was real. Like, why? Why is that odd? Why is it? Do you just want me to be fake and show up? I don't like. I don't get it.
It's People, to answer your question, people can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at real Nico Lagan. and on YouTube at Nico Lagan.
Yeah, and of course I'll put all this information in the show notes so everybody can find you. Nico, really cool to meet you. I enjoyed our conversation. I don't like having these conversations, but
Yeah,
I hope that in some small way that if somebody's been feeling something that they realize, hey, maybe I'm not alone in my thoughts, and you know, if you'd like to talk about this further, you know, reach out to Nico, reach out to me. There's you know, we want to help. We want to see men be their very, very best. And I think that's why we do what we do. And I I'm feel blessed to do it. So
right there with you, Mike. Thanks for
yeah.
doing what you do, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Nico. Thanks for being on the show today. Just really,
Absolutely.
really blessed to have you here. Thank you.